Hello, and my name is James Deasy, and representing here at What House, and we're here to talk about the What House show, which you can see up there, because we are not far away. I think we're just under a couple of weeks now until the What House show in Brighton. And I'm joined here today by Joanna Leggett of Leggett I can never say it.
Immobilier.
And we're just going to talk a little bit about the French property market. So, Joanna, I mean, what's going on out in France? Is it a good market? Is it a dying market? Where are we at the moment?
Well, I would say that this year has been much stronger than it was last year. It's definitely a buyer's market. Property prices are the lowest they've been in a long time, probably since 2008. Probably about 30% down on what they were in 2008. And it's not looking likely that they're going to rise much this year or perhaps even next year. So it's a really, really good time to buy. However, all the good properties obviously do sell quite quickly now as well. So we're about, for our sales, we're about 40% up year on year on sales. So there's a lot more people coming, and I think because the pound is strong as well at the moment, it's also very good for British people to buy.
That's quite a strong statement. It's one of the busiest years since 2008. I mean, the overseas property market has always been, I think, a little bit more sensitive to perhaps the UK domestic market, and to say that it's its most powerful for, well, nearly 6 years, I mean, that's a pretty strong statement to make.
I mean, we cover the whole of France, so we've got, some regions are doing extremely well, other regions aren't. The Alps, for example, did extremely well last year, but is a lot quieter this year. But overall, I'd say this is probably the strongest year we've had since 2008. We were about 30% up last year on year, and this year we're 40% up year on last year. So I think that the market really has changed, and property prices are really good at the moment, and I think that that's what's making the difference. With the pound being strong as well.
It's one of the things I always love about the Leggett
Immobilier.
You go on there, and the raft of property from all the different regions. I mean, I always think your stands are quite a spectacle, because it's like property porn all over the place. It's an amazing thing to see.
Well, we do have about 13,000 properties on our books, but I think the difference between us and, say, somebody like a Portal, for example, is that all of our agents live and work in France. A lot of them may be British, so they may have done the move over themselves, so they've got great experience to talk through. But the great thing about us is all of those 13,000 properties, we've all, one of us has been in there, taken the photographs, we know the property, we know the vendor, so you can get really good local knowledge from us as well.
I urge anybody, I think you're stand P8 for anybody that wants to come along to the show to have a look. But, I mean, from the raft, and you say there's 13,000, are there any particular regions which, I mean, you said some are doing well, some not so well, that you think are really excelling themselves at the moment, and perhaps regions to look out for in France?
I would say it really depends. The most important thing is researching your area without a doubt and going to have a look. And it really depends on, for British people, for example, there are certain areas where there is no English spoken at all, and if you don't speak French, then you really do need to speak French. Areas that are very popular are still the Poitou-Charentes area, the Languedoc-Roussillon, the Alps is still very strong, the Rhone Alps. The Côte d'Azur is always popular, but that's not just so much with British people, that's a very international market. So most of the sales in France to the international market are made in the Côte d'Azur. Brittany and Normandy are quite popular as areas, and the only rise in prices that we've seen has been in the Auvergne and the Midi-Pyrenees. That's the only two areas that are slightly going up in price-wise. Perhaps that's the demand, or perhaps it's the local French market that are pushing those property prices up.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, the vastness of France and its markets are all intricate in nature. It's the same as in the UK, isn't it? North, south, east, west. They're always going to be fluctuating as they go.
Yes. Well, there's just a series of micro markets. That's what it is. Some areas, for example, last year the Alps, the property prices there rose 5%, where everywhere else was dropping, had dropped 25%. This year they're a lot more stable. They don't seem to be rising again. So I think it's just a series of micro markets everywhere, and it really depends on the different areas and regions and where the work is for the local French.
Yeah, absolutely, and I must say, I mean, that's part of the reason why I think it's really important for us to have Leggett, at the awards, because fundamentally you guys are vast, and so therefore you have this confidence to say you can talk about micro markets within the entire French property market.
Yes,
it is vast, and if you are only certain region orientated, it is difficult to perhaps have a non-biased viewpoint.
Exactly. And I think as well for a person that's looking to buy in France, if they're not sure about what area they want to be in, then it's a really good idea to come along to the stand and get as much information as you can. Talk to everybody, talk to all that. We will have guys on the stand from different areas, so you'll get an idea of what the climate's like, what the weather's like. We're doing a seminar as well, which is on where to live in France. So we talk about all the different regions, what's good, what foods, the architecture, the style, the type of climate, the type of people that live there, how easy it is to integrate into the community. Is it rural? Is it a busy town? That type of thing. And I would suggest, the shows are the best things to, if you're thinking about moving abroad to any country, the best thing to do is to come along to a show and talk to as many people as possible and do as much research and talk to finance people, banks, estate agents, and gain as much knowledge as you possibly can, because it will certainly help you when you arrive in France or wherever else you are in the world, or buying in the world as such.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? With overseas property, it is. People do get concerned about buying overseas because it is hundreds, if not thousands, of miles away, and quite often it's company like yours, Joanna, where you are the experts locally, nationally, and it is so important, not to be afraid and to come on and talk to these people, because quite often, as you said, your agents will have been into those properties. Quite often, the people who are selling those properties live in France themselves. They know the market, they know what's going on, they know the pitfalls, they know the good bits, and that's the thing, isn't it? With overseas property, there are good things at buying and there are bad things at buying, but as long as you know those bad bits, you're so well versed.
Exactly, and I think, and that's the thing. I think because we've been established for near on 20 years now, and I think we've been through every problem imaginable, and we've dealt with every issue imaginable, and we've tried to help clients in whatever way. And I think some of the biggest issues are renovation, and I think that's where is a big stumbling block. People really underestimate the cost of renovation, and we do advise that cosmetic is fine, but I think because the property prices are so cheap in France compared to the UK, that a lot of clients imagine that the cost of renovation is going to be cheap, and it really isn't. Sometimes it's more expensive than the UK. So there's issues like that you really do need to do as much research, because we do see people coming over wanting to buy the dream house and going to do all this DIY or renovation themselves, but they have no experience in it, and then when they realise we can advise them on the pitfalls and what does need to be done, and give them advice on what that's actually going to cost, so it becomes more of a reality than the dream as such.
Absolutely, and like you said a little bit earlier on, there's this perception that it's exactly the same as in England, and primarily one factor that we've got to consider is the French-English barrier, which puts people in, to all
exactly. The language is a major barrier for a lot of English people, and a lot of people will come to this and say, oh, we want to be in a town where there's no other English. Well, to be honest, there's probably English in every town in France these days. Although there is more French in England than there is English in France. Particularly around London areas. However, I think that the stumbling block is the language, and they feel that they're going to be immersed with French, they're going to be speaking French within 6 months, and it's not that easy. If you don't speak any French and you're retired or whatever, it is a longer process to learn. And that's why you probably will need the support of the Belgians, the Dutch, or the English in your circle of friends, or where you move into the area, who will help you and advise you on certain things like insurance or taxes or property renovations and things like that.
That's good to know. Well, look, Joanna, firstly, thank you for your time. These are generally 5 to 10 minute talks. I know that I could probably talk to you about the French property market for hours on end.
Well, you come and see us on the stand, and then you can.
I will. And that's partly what I'm urging you guys to do out there. If you like what Joanna's talking about, do come and visit Leggett Immobilier. I will one day, having worked in the industry for so long, I will get that right. On stand P8 at the Hilton Metropole in Brighton, 27th, 28th of September. And like you said, Joanna, I think you are doing a seminar as well, so no doubt there'll be some really informative information on there as well. So,
great.
Joanna, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And to all you out there, I hope to see you at the WhatHouse Show. Thanks very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.